When I bought the milling machine that I currently have, I noticed that the drawbar was actually metric, um, which poses a few problems being that most of the collets and tools I have for my milling machine are in imperial. So it was time to build a new drawbar, and I decided to keep all the measurements in metric except for the thread, which was a 7/16 thread on the bottom. First process, of course, cutting a piece of metal, and once again, I rely on this saw. It is just a fantastic saw, and it's getting close to actually being where the saw now shuts off when uh, when it cuts through the material. Next thing, of course, getting the lathe ready, taking off the three jaw chuck I had on there, and installing the four jaw chuck on there to start turning down this piece of metal to dimensions I need for this drawbar. I still have to say on these four jaw trucks, I either hit it right off or it takes forever to get anything centered in that vise. Though it is getting faster the more I do it. When I started this project, I decided to leave most of the material inside and get the one end as close as possible. In one of my books for school, it actually states like leave everything a little proud, so you got some room to trim it down later on. And I do have to say that that's a pretty good idea. And for parts of this, I did leave a little proud, and unfortunately, there was a few other parts in this where the last cut, even after hitting it with some sandpaper and polishing up a bit, there was still tool marks in the drawbar. The cutter I have on here now, I just got recently, and I really like the way it's cutting this material. This cutter that's currently on here, it's a lot faster, but it does leave quite the mess on the material. I do have to change it because on that one side I do need a right hand cutter to get in there, and the other one just wouldn't get close enough. And once everything was close, then I went back on this side, and this last little bit here with that last cutting tool, I just couldn't get close enough to the chuck to cut. So I changed the tool and back out and finished this off to get it back to size. Once it was down back to size, the next thing was just to take some sandpaper and just give it a nice scuffing to try to get some of the scratches and tooling marks off of there, and also to get it to size for what I needed. Um, all in all, I was pretty impressed with the job on the lathe this time. And you can see it's just over right now. And turning this back on and just giving it a tiny, tiny little bit more was enough to put it into spec. Though after the fact, I did notice that the diameter of this bar really didn't matter that much. There was a lot of room to play with, and in fact, if I do another one at any point in time, it'll be a lot thicker. I was concerned at this point that when I started parting this off, it'd be flopping all over the place and making a hell of a mess. But I was quite surprised that it actually stayed where it was right till the very end until it actually came off like that. At this point, I figured might as well put in a collet chuck there, face this other end up, and bevel it a little bit, and get ready for the threading. I do like this chuck, and you see the runout on it now is like non-existent. So from this point forward, pretty much everything on this bar is going to be done in this 5C chuck. Currently, it's right here. The chuck is in a holder in the vise, and I'm going to start threading the one end of it. I did find out, however, that there was no possible way I could make that tight enough to actually thread it. I think I got about 5, 6 threads on it, and it just, at that point it just started turning in that holder. So the next thing was to put it in the milling machine and cut the other end to be able to put a wrench on it and hold it with the wrench as I actually threaded that end in. So off to the milling machine we go, and of course it had to come out and get turned around so that not so much is actually sticking out. But as you can see, the R8 collets are fitting very nicely. No wobble whatsoever. So to cut the round part of that bar on the end there into a square. Originally, I was thinking about using the math that is available to do so, but then it kind of dawned on me if we just take a measurement of the square on the other bar and then take a measurement of the round on this bar and subtract the square from the round and then divide it by 2, that is exactly how much I need to cut on each side to make that square bar. So super simple math on that. Didn't have to get too complicated and hurt my brain or anything. I was a little weary cutting it. The first time I cut anything on a lathe, the first 2 times the lathe crashed, and that was the last time I cut anything. So this will be the next time that anything gets cut on this. Sorry, not lathe, milling machine. So as you can see from my first cut here, I'm going very, very slow to make sure nothing happens, and the cut went good. I will be happy when this drawbar is actually in the machine, so I don't have this collet holder taking up 2.5 inches like it currently is. Um, and the cuts after these all went like 1/5 of the time. For these to get where my measurements were, I do have that DRO, and to get where the measurements were, I just touched it off the top, and I also touched it off the area of the bar where it starts getting thicker, and centered those 2 measurements out in the DRO. And as I turned the holder that's holding the collet, I just made sure it's flush like it is now with the vise to keep all those measurements, relatively the same. There's nothing in here that's really super accurate or needs to be super accurate, but it's nice to do the best job as a person can without spending tons and tons of time doing it. A little later on the video, you're going to see when I take this out that the holder for that collet actually, well, you can see the hole right there, and that little key or that little screw caused a little bit of problems too until I realized why it wasn't going down. But that hole in the vise actually caused or could cause that collet holder to not sit properly or level. For future things, I think I'll use a pair of small parallels underneath that, just raise it up and give it support across the whole area of it. So it's not actually dependent on just the one side of the vise to hold it. And you can see there, just as I loosen off of it, how it lowered down. And that's a lot of area that's bouncing or has the potential to bounce up and down and from that hole in the center. Anyway, super simple fix. Just need to put some parallels in there, and you see that came out rather nice. The next step for that is to actually put it into the vise and take a file to it and just clean it up a bit and make sure that the wrench that I have fits nicely on all 4 sides, or well, 2 sides, I guess. If it fits on 2, it's going to fit on 4. Also, with the file, it did make it look a little nicer taking the tool and marks out from where it got cut. Yeah, a little bit more on that side. But my other side, it actually came out well. I already kind of pre-filed it, but it came out nice as well. And once that was done, the next step is just to take it out of the collet holder there in the collet and put a little bit of bluing on it. Uh, so it did have to like go in the vise and put a wrench on the bottom to hold it to get the threads put on there. And as you can see, okay. Acetone used to, or I use it to take any oil or grease off an item. And if you got a sliver or a little cut and you're using acetone, you'll know exactly where that sliver or little cut is. Acetone is pretty much like pure isopropyl. It stings on any little wounds or cuts. So once this thing's cleaned up, the next stage here is to do a chemical bluing on it to help prevent it from rusting. And this bottle of bluing I got, if you actually go to the gun stores and buy gun blue, it works out to about 4 or 5 times the amount of money per volume as I got this from one of the machining shops in the Lower Mainland. The stuff here at the end, I put a little too much in there. I had a lot left over. I'm gonna get in a little bottle and pour it into the little bottle. I don't want to actually pour it back into the big container when it's been used because it has picked up some sediment and some color from doing the bluing. When everything was said and done on the bluing, I left it down for overnight and came back the next day and started up the bench grinder with the polishing wheel on the one side and gave it a really good buffing, and it come out nice and shiny and looked really impressive. And that's it. Got a new drawbar, and now I can use my R8 collets and not depend on the ones that came with the machine.